Very good morning. You're watching News9 Live. I'm Karthik Malhotra. This is Morning Brief at 9. Major reshuffle in Finance Ministry just weeks before the budget. We'll get you those details. Also, the World Economic Forum has released a report on jobs of the future. Are you ready for those jobs? We'll have Prabir Jha and Rituparna Chakravarti with us on the show to discuss that. Also on the show, a macro view on the economy and the markets with Avinash Gorakshakar. This is Morning Brief at 9 on News9 Live. This is Morning Brief at 9. A look at the headlines this morning. The World Economic Forum releases report on the future of workforce. 92 million jobs to be displaced. AI to lead disruption. Front-end jobs to stay, but many others to go. We'll discuss. The Commerce Department has revised gold import data for the month of November 2024 after an accounting error was reported. Gold imports now down by $5 billion to $9.8 billion from the earlier reported $14.9 billion. Trade deficit also now pegged at $31.7 billion, about $6 billion lower than previously reported. Q3 earnings season kicks off. Tata Consultancy Services to announce its results for Q3 today and possibly a change in guidance. A big reshuffle within the Finance Ministry just weeks ahead of Budget 2025. Revenue Secretary Arunish Chawla moved to head Department of Investment and Public Asset Management or DIPAM, while DIPAM Secretary Tuhin Kanta Pandey appointed as new Revenue Secretary. Pandey is also the Finance Secretary. The race for quick deliveries gathers more pace in 2025. Zomato to take on Swiggy, Bolt and Zepto Cafe with a 15-minute food delivery service. Meanwhile, competitor Swiggy launches another app, Swiggy Snack, to deliver packaged food and beverages in a 10 to 15-minute window. And about a week to go for the Bharat Mobility Expo. Slew of new cars to be showcased. We tell you what awaits you at this expo. US private job growth slows down sharply again. December sees fewer job additions at just 1,22,000 jobs after a strong 1,46,000 jobs in the month of November. But better news on the unemployment front as the numbers fall to an 11-month low to just 2,01,000 jobless claims for the week ended Jan 4th. In a major shake-up within the Finance Ministry, senior IAS officer Arunish Chawla has been reassigned from his role as Revenue Secretary to lead the Department of Investment and Public Asset Management or DIPAM. This reshuffle comes just 3 weeks before the Union Budget 2025 is set to be presented on the 1st of February. Now, in Chawla's place, Tuhin Kanta Pandey, currently the Finance Secretary as well as the head of DIPAM, will take over the new Revenue Secretary role as well. Arunish Chawla, a 1992 batch officer of the Bihar cadre, had only assumed the position of Revenue Secretary on December 25th after previously serving as the Secretary of Department of Pharmaceuticals. In his new role, Chawla will also hold additional charges as Secretary of the Department of Public Enterprises and the Ministry of Culture until permanent replacements are appointed. Tuhin Kanta Pandey, an IAS officer from the 1987 batch of the Odisha cadre, was also serving as the Secretary of Department of Public Enterprises before taking the Revenue Secretary role. Remember, all this happening within less than a month of Sanjay Malhotra, the former Revenue Secretary, joining the Reserve Bank of India as the Governor. Moving on, big changes are expected for the global workforce. The World Economic Forum has released its Future of Jobs Report 2025, and it shows a picture of both disruption as well as opportunity. Now, according to this report, by 2030, a staggering 22% of jobs worldwide will be affected, while 92 million existing jobs are set to appear. 170 million new roles will emerge, leaving us with a net gain of just about 78 million jobs. So what's driving this transformation? Remember, tech innovation, demographic changes, geo-economic tensions and mounting economic pressures are all reshaping industries as well as professions. Joining me on the show this morning are Prabir Jha and Rituparna Chakravarti. Good morning, Rituparna. Good morning, Prabir. Thank you so much for taking time out this morning to join us, Prabir. Let me start with you. AI seems to be the big disruptor. Well, this is not breaking news, but software app developer jobs are likely to be in demand as well. Is there a shift from the assumption that coding jobs will be done by AI? Because coding jobs and software development seems to be in demand going up until 2030.
Yes, so Karthik, thank you for having me on your show. And yes, it's no surprise. I think the trend is fairly secular, has been for the last some years. And I think the character and nature of the IT industry itself is undergoing a major change. And a lot of it will be driven by AI. There is no doubt about that. And therefore, it is a qualitative shift with current job holders. And more importantly, the newer set of jobs are likely to have an accent. Now, having said that, if you take a little longitudinal view, you do not know where exactly this is going to lead on to in 10 years' time. That outlook we don't have. But very clearly, the quality of jobs and the nuance of the jobs are going to change. And therefore, a lot of adaptability, skill upgrades for current employees definitely going to happen. And for those who want to be looking at the IT line and possibly some of the new emerging job opportunities, AI is definitely one of the big areas right now, which is looking to disrupt almost every industry. So it's not just in the software industry, but every possible industry is going to look at leveraging AI. So huge opportunities in the AI space waiting to happen.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and watch how this whole AI story emerges, because there was once upon a time not too long ago where we were assuming that metaverse is going to be the next big thing. But, that resulted to be pretty much just a bubble, at least if we look back now. But Rituparna, let me bring you in. And staying with the tech sector, there are a number of factors, especially headwinds on the global end, not least of all the H-1B visa debate in the US. So, existentially, do you think there is a looming threat to skilled jobs in the IT space overall, AI, coupled with what is happening globally?
Thanks so much. Good morning. Good morning, Praveer. So the thing is, the fact that there is a wind of change is obvious right now. The fact that we will never go back to what used to happen in the tech industry in the past, it's but imminent right now. And most of it, of course, is getting driven by the changes in the innovation and development of technology, whether it's in AI, generative AI, blockchain, and so on and so forth. So I guess the writing is very clear on the wall that if you're going to rest on the past and your past skills, especially if you're a tech professional, it's just not going to be sufficient anymore to secure your future in the future, in the long run. So I think somewhere it's a very directional message, and it's no more subtle or no more gift wrap. If you're not going to skill up, then you might have to worry about how things going to shape up for you. So I guess and the challenge has been the pace at which that scale up or the skill up that was expected, unfortunately, has not been happening. And if it doesn't, then yes, I think. But I'm the fact that there is such a looming opportunity, and the fact that, and especially if I were to talk about India, I think the fact that still so many countries across the world are looking towards India in terms of being the talent exporter for the world augurs well for. It's just that we somehow have to speed up in terms of our ability to kind of scale ourselves up to the level that is required today. And I think you were just a few minutes back alluding to the fact that, software developers, for example, are quite in demand as per the report. While yes, there is a lot of jobs which were erstwhile done by coders and software developers are getting redundant because of AI and the kind of automation tools available. Side by side, what's happening is that more and more the world is moving towards online and mobile based platforms. There is a significant amount of development that needs to happen, which are very specific to different iOS software, let's say an Android software. Then I think that's the reason you see that there is a surge in demand, because I'm not sure that on the AI side you have as many skilled resources to be able to compensate, or whether the tools have developed to that effect to be able to do this job. So I guess there are opportunities, but we have to be very mindful about the fact that what exists today very soon can be gone tomorrow if you are in the tech space.
But Rituparna, I just want to butt in here for just a bit. Now, AI, as I understand, machine learning, which is the bedrock of artificial intelligence, machine learning is looking at whatever exists already. It is pretty much a backward-looking tool which helps you do your job quicker. Will you still not require human beings to really think afresh and hence write the first code, the first few sets of codes before AI can replicate it?
So I think there is a phase, maybe, I mean, I don't know honestly, but it's my assessment is the next 3 to 5 years would be the transition phase, which means AI is getting smarter, the machine learning ability is getting smarter. However, one big challenge still remains, which honestly we have to figure out, is both these things mean well and can do magic only if they have access to the kind of data that it needs to be able to become smarter day by day. So I think that piece still people are struggling with, and because of which there is still a relevance for human beings, because you still need humans to do some of those jobs accurately. I think the issue is right now about accuracy.
Right.
So I don't think humans will be completely redundant, but to be honest, very soon the world will be divided into two categories of people, especially in the world of tech. One, those who are leveraging the creators of the AI tools, and the second, the ones who efficiently know how to operate. So essentially, the creators of AI tools and the operators of the AI tools, very soon, this will be the broad segmentation of the tech workforce. And one has to start preparing. Now that what I'm saying is 3 to 5 years can happen in the next 1 year. I mean, pandemic taught us that never rest back. I mean, you never know.
Absolutely. Well, Prabir, let me bring you in again. So we are talking about at one level, very high-end development of AI models, AI tools, which obviously are going to be well-paying jobs. But at the other end of the spectrum, the report also suggests that there are going to be low-skilled jobs which will be in demand. And these include drivers, delivery services, transportation sector, logistics, etc. Now, these are typically not well-paying jobs, but if these jobs happen to be more and more in demand, what happens to typically the wages that people in low-income countries like India can expect to earn? Because not everybody is going to get skilled in AI, no matter what Satya Nadella comes and tells us.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad you raised it. And when I was going through the report, it is for me a sense of deja vu. I've been talking this for the last 10, 15 years. That the obsession with only top leadership, the obsession with technology, including in the media, has actually ignored the fact of where the actual job creation for the rank and file will happen, and the need for it. So, if you look at it in India particularly, or in India servicing a different part of the world, with a lot of the younger population at one level, yes, we are in a position of leveraging the technology opportunity. But at the same time, there will be need for greater healthcare, for greater education, for all these QSR and quick delivery systems. There will be a lot of opportunity in the construction infrastructure development phase, all of which actually need core skills. And unfortunately, in this obsession and the spotlight always being on AI and tech, the assumption is that is where all the action is happening, which is not true. Actually, the big gap and therefore the job opportunities are going to be in these areas. Right. And in India, with growing disposable income, particularly, and with a population moving towards a time when healthcare support, nursing. Right. So I think there are these opportunities which will create. But I just want to raise a red flag here. There's a difference between job creation jobs will get created. I actually feel, but two things will happen. One is, does it give careers to people for the next 30 years? I don't know, and I'm worried about that.
Right.
Second, the price points, because at the end of the day, these are not going to be very, very high paying opportunities. And with everyone's aspirations, skyrocketing, and nothing wrong with it, but the skills or the pricing of some jobs being more pedestrian, I think it will lead to a lot of societal tension. So we need to be very sensitive about looking at this report, particularly with reference to the developing markets, with a social lens as well, which otherwise could become a big problem.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Rituparna, final question to you. Somewhere in between these low-skilled jobs and these ultra-complex AI jobs is perhaps an opportunity for India. And this is also something which the report highlights with respect to nursing professionals, which, as Prabir said, is likely to still be perhaps one of the sectors where your skill would be relevant for a longer time than perhaps just a couple of years. So India, specifically South India, seems to have an inherent advantage in producing skills in the nursing sector. Do you think, in about 30 seconds or so, we are running out of time, do you think nursing is a sector that India should deliberately really focus on and make the talent shine in that sector?
Short answer, absolutely yes, and not just nursing. The entire healthcare fraternity or the different job roles, if India invests in this, India will be net exporter of healthcare professionals all over the world, because it just clear that given the aging population all over the world, if anyone can look after them, it's going to be the Indians. And why lose out on that opportunity? Completely agree with Prabir what he just said. I think no matter how much we talk about these glitzy, glamorous AI and all of that, India's story and India's success depends upon how well we create the jobs which are towards the bottom of the pillar, and thereon progressively goes ahead. And there are enough and more jobs, and I don't think those jobs are going anywhere. No amount of technology can substitute for the need for drivers, farmers, so many other jobs which need people, actually. So there is an opportunity, there is not for doomsday.
Interesting that you say bottom of the pillar and not bottom of the pyramid. I think that's an interesting perspective as well. Rituparna, Chakrabarti, Prabir Jha, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Morning Brief at 9.
Thank you.
Well, moving on, India's biggest automotive event, the Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2025 is just around the corner, and there is an exciting lineup to look forward to. Major car makers are ready to present their new launches and unveil at the event. Let's take a look at the top lineup. First up is Maruti Suzuki, set to debut its first ever electric vehicle, the e-Vitara, initially introduced as the EVX concept in 2023. This year's model is expected to be the production-ready version of Maruti's first electric vehicle. Next up is Hyundai. It is bringing an electrified element to its bestseller, the Creta, by way of the Creta Electric. This was already a sneak peek at its cabin and powertrain details, but all eyes will be on the official unveiling at the expo. Then there is Tata Motors, which is likely to steal the show with not one, but two electric vehicles. The iconic Tata Sierra EV is making a comeback, featuring a more powerful 60 to 80 kilowatt battery and a range exceeding 500 kilometers. Additionally, the Tata Harrier EV, which has evolved since its 2023 debut, will also be showcased. Remember, while the top two car makers are expected to go fully electric, Tata's expo lineup is expected to be a mix of both ICE as well as electric vehicles. With that, it's time for a short break right here on News9 Live. We will be back on the other side when Avinash Korakshakar tells us what to expect from the markets today and the major events which are likely to shape the mood of the market and the economy. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
I will take you to Paris.
Paris नहीं, Paris. तुम्हारा pronunciation भी ना, तुम्हारे इरादे की तक.
मैडम इरादे कभी ऑफ नहीं होते, टेक ऑफ करते हैं.
SBI Life Smart Platina Supreme के guaranteed return से करो पूरे अपने इरादे, अपनों से किए सभी वादे. SBI Life, अपने लिए, अपनों के लिए.
You dreamt of European engineering, of modern design, of craft that's comfortable. With the best-in-class maintenance cost, we made your dreams a reality. Behold, the Škoda Kailac.
Škoda.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Start with the end in mind. You need to know where you want to reach. Every morning that we wake up, we are exercising our choice. The destiny is decided. The results are known that I'm going to win. Life of a goalkeeper is something which has always intrigued me. When you come into a stadium, this is the highest level of pressure. When I set out to do something, I decide in my mind that failure is not an option.
What you feel very strongly about, those are the stories to tell.
I have a mind which is absolutely restless. Mind and body are entangled sensations. That brings me back to golf. It's an amazing game.
This is not a perfect game. You only learn from them.
If you have a formula to a success, then you can replicate it.
I feel this is my first step. I'm starting now.
Winner is first born in the mind. I think, therefore I am. We are all about our mind.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Karthik Malhotra. The Indian stock markets opened just a few minutes ago. A flattish open for the broad markets, but the Sensex and Nifty, the heavyweights, seem to be down this morning, opening about 0.3% lower than yesterday's close. Remember, Nifty 50 just about managing to stay at the 23,600 levels, not able to cross the 23,700 mark, which many were anticipating that it would do. Let's look at the markets heat map and see which are the sectors which are in the green and red this morning. Well, seems to be a bit of a mixed bag. TCS, which is going to announce its results today, is absolutely flat, no change there. Infosys slightly in the positive territory. HCL, Wipro losing ground this morning. Reliance Industry is down about 0.2%. A mixed bag even on the banking front, while the auto sector again seems like a mixed bag, with Maruti opening in the red, Mahindra and Mahindra a little in the green. Joining me on the show now is Avinash Gorakshakar. Avinash, first question to you. How long before we see Nifty scale back to the 23,700 levels and then perhaps to the 24,000 levels?
Yeah, good morning, Karthik. See, my guess is I think, markets will be volatile now ahead of 20th January when Donald Trump actually takes over the office as the US president. And I think that is going to be the key trigger in the very near term. As far as the market mood is concerned, I think clearly today's TCS numbers are going to be out by evening. There is a conference call at 7 p.m. So I would believe that, the markets are closely going to watch what kind of commentary comes from the management, because December is already a soft quarter. Whatever improvement comes in is expected in the March quarter. And I think, the commentary will be more important than the financial numbers. Most importantly, this is a time when, the rupee has weakened considerably. FI outflows are quite significant. And bond yields in the US have reached record levels. So I think, this clearly points to a picture that at least in the very near term, there is unlikely to be any big re-rating for the index. I think the index is going to be extremely indecisive, like what we saw yesterday. In the first half, the market was down, then there was a pullback of sorts.
Again, today the markets are down. So I think clearly there is no directional trend as of now. And I think markets would obviously wait for more clarity once the new US president takes over. And that I think would be a key trigger point. And after that, of course, it would be the forthcoming budget. But till that time, I think I don't expect any major upside on the index level. I think it should be more stock specific based on the Q3 numbers, which are going to be out, in the near, at least in the very near term.
Right. So Q3 numbers, of course, will be out in the next couple of weeks, in fact, across all sectors, not just IT. But in terms of guidance, Avinash, I want to understand, is it going to be particularly difficult for IT sector companies to give a realistic guidance for both Q4 and for the next year until Donald Trump actually assumes office? This is with respect to not just headwinds on the strengthening dollar and the weakening rupee, but which incidentally is going to be a positive for the IT sector. But in addition to that, the H-1B visas.
No, I think, clearly more clarity will come in only once the new US president takes over, because there's a lot of, deal pipeline which is yet not materialized for IT companies. And I think, despite the fact that the rupee weakening will actually be beneficial for IT companies, one thing is very clear is that the market wants to get a hint of what kind of growth quotient can come in over the next, say, 12 months. And that entirely depends on new deals, new kind of customer additions by these IT companies. And US being the mother market, I think clearly, you'll probably get to know things in a better perspective once we get to know the management commentary. For this quarter, I don't expect TCS to show any fireworks. What we expect is that they would obviously give a very cautious kind of a stance as far as margins and business outlook is concerned. But the near-term trigger would be the March quarter. So I think, in the very near term, stocks like HCL Technologies, Infosys, or for that reason TCS, among the smaller ones, Persistent, KPIT, these are all interesting bets, considering their financials, their balance sheet strengths. But I think for the growth to come in, it may take at least maybe a couple of quarters. So I think till that time, we could yet see market performer kind of, performances from these stocks. No major kind of upside is expected.
All right, no major upset expected as far as the IT majors are concerned, but I want to now shift focus slightly to the new age stocks, which are again operating at the cusp of both consumption and technology. So to begin with, Zomato, the food delivery giant Zomato, is now rolling out a 15-minute delivery service, upping the game in the quick food delivery race. Now, this already has seen traction in other platforms, including Swiggy as well as Zepto with the Zepto Cafe. Now, how do you see, Avinash, the likes of Zomato, Swiggy? Swiggy is, of course, newly listed. Zomato has been around for a while, is now a Sensex 30 company. This ultra-fast delivery race, is this something which, according to you, is going to be sustainable no matter, what the demand is? Is it going to be sustainable to keep up the momentum of ultra-high-paced deliveries? And what does this do to operating margins of both Zomato and Swiggy?
No, I think, I think quick service delivery players want to focus on the time quotient, largely because they want to grab the attention of the customers in a very short time span. And I think you're right in saying that Blinkit and Zepto have already started doing it. Now Zomato is going to come with a 15-minute delivery. So I think, the market demand is quite huge. And specifically in, tier 1 markets, metros, where a lot of demand for these food app, companies exist. I think, over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, there's a lot of headroom for growth available. But I think, yes, in the near term, what will happen is that most of these companies will have to invest a lot. And obviously, immediately the volumes will not increase. So to that extent, there could be a little bit of margin compression, margin pressure on these companies. But I think most of these companies are taking a longer term call because they believe that this is here to stay. And, the kind of trends which we are seeing in the food consumption habits of most of the customers is that they want quick service with a very fast timeline. So I think, clearly Zomato is targeting at that market segment, which I believe is a big market. But yes, it will take some time before we see some material numbers coming out of this initiative. So, I mean, my sense is that, investors who want to actually bet on such companies should at least give a 2 to 3 year kind of time span to ensure that their portfolios become profitable, because most of these companies are operating, near to break even. Some of them are not making EBITDA level profits. So for all those numbers to get positive, you need to give in a slightly longer time frame, which eventually will happen positively for all these players.
Do you see consolidation in this space, Avinash, going forward? Are there too many players, and over time, do you think we are going to see more M&A sort of acquisition spree kicking off at some point?
No, I think M&As will happen, but not at this point of time. I think currently, the top 2-3 players control the market, and I think smaller players are unlikely to make any dent because this business requires a huge amount of capital spent. A lot of sustainability of business is required, and I think companies which are only well funded and which are either funded by public issue money or PE funds, only those players can survive. So I think, it's a very, closely guarded market. I think in the food app business, as we all know, there are only 2 players. The quick service business also, I don't think there are going to be many players because, in the past also, we have seen many players come and disappear. So I think you're going to see a closely guarded market, but yes, consolidation will happen maybe after the next 1 or 2 years.
Consolidation after the next 1 or 2 years. Okay, Avinash, I want to now shift focus to the macro economy and both at the global and at the domestic front. Let's start with global. The US job market continues to show resilience as applications for unemployment benefits fell to their lowest level in almost an entire year. In fact, it came in at an 11-month low at 201,000 jobless claims for the week ending Jan 4th. Now, this becomes a mixed bag because the private job growth in the US in the month of December has actually fallen again from November levels of 1,46,000 to about 1,24,000 odd jobs. So, Avinash, what do you make of the US economy? Donald Trump notwithstanding, but the US economy is continuing to bring some little surprises where one doesn't really know what to make of the economy. Is the economy stable? Is the job creation happening? Is it happening fast enough? And how is that going to impact India?
No, I think clearly, my sense is that once Donald Trump takes over as the new president, you're going to see a lot of changes happening on the US economy. And I think clearly the US job market trends are clearly not conclusive as of now. I would believe that we may have to wait for maybe another couple of months to get a clear sense as to what is happening on the unemployment rate front, on the job addition front, especially from the private space. Typically, Donald Trump has been very clear that he wants to push up consumption, but the fear is that inflation would go up. And if inflation goes up, that means interest rates may not come down immediately. It may take some time. I think the key challenge for the US economy would be to how to bring down inflation. I think inflation is a very touchy subject, and that has been taking a long time to moderate. So I think, unless the rate cuts happen, you're not going to see a very dramatic shift in the US economy. I think most US economists were looking forward for a rate cut, but I think if, Donald Trump continues with his aggressive stance on consumption and building infrastructure, then I think inflation is again going to go up. So I think we'll have to wait and watch, Karthik, for at least a couple of quarters, at least maybe up to August, September, and after that we could get some conclusive evidence as to how the US economy is placed. But things definitely look much better than previous year.
All right, and I want to bring you in now on this development which came late last night, and we just reported it in our headlines this morning, and this is with respect to the changes in the finance ministry just ahead of the budget. Now, the revenue secretary who had assumed office just about a month back after Sanjay Malhotra moved to the Reserve Bank of India as its governor has now been moved to DIPAM, and the DIPAM secretary, who happens to be the expenditure secretary, is now the revenue secretary. So what do you make of these changes, the shuffling in the finance ministry just weeks before the budget? Is there something that the government is trying to do which it is unable to do? What do you make of this development, Avinash?
No, I think very difficult to comment because, these changes, what is the real objective? I think one needs to be very clear and, objective in their exercise. But one thing is very clear that this time, across the market, there is no buzz and there is no excitement for the budget. People are not expecting some big miraculous budget. In fact, most of the market.
Ask you your budget expectations, and you cut me short. I was just going to ask you, but you're saying there is absolutely nothing that the market is expecting.
No, I think this is the month of January, Karthik, and you see we are now headed for the budget on the 1st of February. Nothing is, being spoken in the market. There's no excitement because I think markets expect that at least no negative surprise comes in this budget. Like last time, the capital gains tax was a big negative surprise. This time, of course, there are some hopes that middle class, people could get some tax relief. There could be some benefits for consumption. But I think, clearly you could see probably a pre-budget rally just a week before the event. as of now, the bigger event is the US president taking over on the 20th of Jan. And I think, as long as the rupee continues to be under pressure, the FI outflows continue to be so consistent, I think this is something which is troubling the market. So I think, clearly, if nothing comes negative, that itself will be considered as a big positive by the market. But yes, hopefully, the GST issue, which a lot of people were saying that government wants to entangle a lot of smaller inputs in the GST angle, that also is something which I think markets are a little worried about, because GST also collections have taken a beat. People are wondering, in this kind of scenario, the government has to give some support to the industry. Only then the industry will survive and flourish. So I think it's better to wait and watch, Karthik. But yes, markets are not expecting some great budget, fireworks just ahead of the budget.
Okay, but security transaction tax, abolishing that is something which comes up as one of the key demands every time ahead of the budget. Do you think that is something that the finance ministry could consider or should consider?
No, I think it's a very noble thought, Karthik, that they should consider. But, the government is unlikely to take out such a large component, when they get such a lot of revenue from this STT tax. And I think, it's here to stay. I think all traders, investors have got to now believe that once the government comes with this kind of tax, it's very unlikely that this tax would be taken out. So my sense is that, if they give a incentive for capital investment, if they give a incentive for consumption, if they give some tax relief for middle class, citizens, I think that itself will be, appreciated by the markets, because I think, net realizations in the hand of, customers would actually propel consumption. And that is now the key challenge before the government. We have seen consumption levels gone down significantly. And that, I think, is supposed to be the primary, activity which I think the government should do.
Absolutely,
so,
and urban consumption no less. So most of your taxpayers coming from the urban areas of the country and urban consumption taking a hit. Obviously, the government should definitely do something, and this is something which I think will be the demand of every tax-paying middle-class citizen in the country, that the government does give them more money in their hands. But Avinash, we leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Moving on, following an error in the calculation of the gold price and the gold import in the month of November, the government has now revised the gold import data downwards, and this has been revised downwards by a solid $5 billion. So new estimates now suggest that the value of gold imported in the month of November was just $9.8 billion as opposed to the earlier reported $14.86 billion. This is a revision, a downward revision of about 34%. Now remember, the error in the calculation, which had initially contributed to a record trade deficit, pushed the rupee also to an all-time low. Well, the rupee continues to be at an all-time low, notwithstanding the correction in the data, but officials discovered that gold shipments in warehouses had been double counted due to a change in the auditing and the reporting method. Now, reports suggest that the discrepancy arose from adding gold held by custodians in free trade zones along with the figures reported by domestic banks purchasing gold. The surge in imports had raised concerns among analysts, especially after a duty cut in the union budget earlier last year. But officials had promised to reconcile the data. Well, that data has now been reconciled down by about $5 billion to about $9.8 billion. Now, the revised figures have also therefore revised India's trade deficit for the month of November, which now stands at about $31.7 billion as opposed to $37.9 billion reported earlier. We will head into a break, but before that, now a quick look at the top global headlines this morning. US President-elect Donald Trump asks the Supreme Court to delay the TikTok ban in the country while he works out a political resolution. Now, will the US Supreme Court block President-elect Trump's hush money case? Trump's lawyers file appeal. Matter set to be heard tomorrow. Wall Street holds firm a day after strong reports on the economy spooked the market. Stocks edge higher after initial concerns on inflation and interest rates. Wildfires rage in Los Angeles, forcing over 30,000 people to evacuate. Two tourists and a plot killed after a light aircraft crashes near Rottnest Island in Perth, Australia. Two tourists and a pilot killed. Volkswagen manages to take a combined €300 million pay cut. The move comes after pressure from unions amid job losses. UK's luxury automaker Rolls-Royce is all set to rev up its investment on the bespoke cars. The car maker will invest €300 million to expand its key Goodwood plant in the UK. China's electric vehicle producer BYD brought hundreds of Chinese workers to Brazil on irregular visas, reveals a Brazilian labor investigation. South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol faces a new and a more rigorous arrest attempt.
The section is called The Bit of the Empire Striking Back. It is not me who said it, it's Mr. Tata who said it. And normally you don't expect him to say that because he's very polite, he's very understated. But at a weak moment in the speech in Cornell, he said India's acquisition abroad made by Tata Group is kind of the empire striking back. Please understand, Mr. Ratan Tata is a very, very patriotic man. Extremely nationalistic. He had the nation's interest first and everything else second.
This and more. Streaming on News9 plus news is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge. It's a way of life where every scene, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9 at News9 Live. Well, US President-elect Donald Trump has asked the US Supreme Court to delay the TikTok ban in the country while he works out a political resolution. The court is set to hear arguments on the US law that requires TikTok's Chinese owner ByteDance to sell the popular app to an American company. Here's more in this report.
The U.S. Supreme Court hears arguments Friday over a federal law that would force a sale of the Chinese-owned short video app TikTok by January 19th, or face a ban on national security grounds. TikTok and its China-based parent company ByteDance have sued to block the law from taking effect, citing free speech rights. And President-elect Donald Trump is siding with TikTok in the legal fight, pitting him against many of his fellow Republicans. Driven by concerns that China could access data or spy on Americans with the app, Congress overwhelmingly passed the measure last year with bipartisan support, and Democratic President Joe Biden signed it into law. Former Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell has compared TikTok's legal pushback to a hardened criminal seeking a stay of execution. The Republican chairman and the top Democratic member of a congressional panel focused on China jointly urged the Supreme Court to uphold the measure to protect the American people from foreign threats. But Trump has said he has a warm spot for TikTok, and has vowed to save a platform on which his campaign generated billions of views. For its part, TikTok and ByteDance portray the law as running afoul of the First Amendment. Republican attorneys general from 22 states filed a brief with the court disagreeing with TikTok's arguments and asking the justices to uphold the statute. Allowing TikTok to operate in the United States without severing its ties to the Chinese Communist Party exposes Americans to the risk of the Chinese Communist Party accessing and exploiting their data. These state officials, led by Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen, wrote in their filing. Montana tried to ban TikTok at the state level but was blocked by a federal court. Trump's support for TikTok is a reversal from 2020, when during his first term as president, he tried to block the app and force its sale to American companies. Trump has since said a TikTok ban would benefit Meta-owned platforms Facebook and Instagram, which he has criticized for suspending him after the attack on the U.S. Capitol by his supporters on January 6, 2021. In a filing, his lawyer John Sauer said Trump wanted the ability to resolve the issues through political means once he takes office.
Staying with Donald Trump, well, just days before the U.S. president-elect is set to be sentenced for his conviction arising from the hush money case, Trump's lawyers have filed an appeal in the U.S. Supreme Court. Trump's legal team has asked the Supreme Court to immediately order a stay in the case while they appeal the ruling upholding the guilty verdict on 34 felony counts. Here's more in this report.
Donald Trump has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene just days before the president-elect is set to be sentenced for his conviction stemming from hush money paid to a porn star. In a filing made public on Wednesday, Trump's lawyers asked the High Court to immediately order a stay in the case, as Trump seeks an appeal to resolve questions of presidential immunity.
By the way, I did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. If I did something wrong, I wouldn't be standing here right now because I've won all these cases.
Trump, who won another term in the White House and is set to take office January 20th, was convicted on 34 felony counts by a New York jury for illegally hiding payments to adult film actor Stormy Daniels, meant to buy her silence about what she says was a sexual encounter with the former reality TV star. Trump has denied the encounter and any wrongdoing. The hush money case made Trump the first U.S. president, sitting or former, to be charged with a crime, and also the first to be convicted. Since the verdict, his lawyers have made 2 unsuccessful attempts to have the case tossed. Separately, the U.S. Justice Department on Wednesday said it will not make public for now Special Counsel Jack Smith's report on Trump's retention of classified records, citing the ongoing prosecutions of 2 associates of the president-elect. The department added that Smith has completed his 2-volume report on Trump, and that Attorney General Merrick Garland plans for now to publicly release only the first section related to Trump's efforts to subvert the 2020 presidential election.
And staying with the U.S., firefighters have been battling to douse ferocious wildfires in Los Angeles. Over 30,000 people have reportedly been forced to evacuate, including some celebrities whose residences are at the plush Pacific Palisades, which is among the first of the residential areas to be affected. Take a look.
A wildfire tore through an upscale suburb north of Los Angeles on Tuesday. Officials said nearly 3,000 acres of the Pacific Palisades area between Santa Monica and Malibu had burned. One man who lives there named Peter said he was trying to retrieve things from his home when he decided it was too dangerous.
I got within 300 yards of my house, and some gentleman picked me up and took me the rest of the way. The fire department stopped, and as it stopped, we saw some literally flaming debris landed in the road near where we were standing. So it seemed to me, let's get out of here. Whatever I lose, and there's nothing I can do about it.
The blaze destroyed houses and led to the evacuation of some 30,000 people, while firefighters raced to stamp out the blaze. These aircraft scooped water from the nearby Pacific Ocean to drop on the flames. Reuters spoke to this woman stuck in traffic as residents fled the area beneath huge plumes of smoke.
I mean, I've never seen anything. Fires were this close to the cars. People left their cars on Palisades Drive, burning up the hillside, the palm trees, everything's going. And the wind and the firemen are great, but you can only do so much.
Time-lapse videos captured the rapid advance of the fire, which grew 6-fold in a matter of hours. Officials warned the worst wind conditions were expected to come overnight. That has fueled concerns that more neighborhoods could be forced to flee. California Governor Gavin Newsom urged residents to heed evacuation orders and warned that the winds could produce more fires elsewhere.
We are anticipating, hopefully we're wrong, but we're anticipating other fires happening concurrently. And that's exactly the previous experience we've had with these kinds of wind events.
The fire chief of Los Angeles said no injuries had been reported so far. Before the fire started, officials had already warned of extreme fire danger through Thursday from powerful winds that arrived following an extended dry spell. Known as Santa Ana winds, the strong, dry westerly winds originating in inland deserts are more common in the fall, but can affect Southern California any time of year.
On to Europe now. Volkswagen managers are set to take a combined €300 million pay cut. The move comes after pressure from union amid job losses. Volkswagen had recently cut a deal with the unions in December that they would avoid factory closure in the near term. Take a look at this report.
Volkswagen's management will take pay cuts adding up to over $310 million by 2030. That's according to a VW Human Resources board member. Their comments were published in a local paper on Wednesday. They said the VW board would take a larger cut proportional to their salary than the rest of management or the workforce. Volkswagen and unions struck a landmark agreement in December to cut costs at the car maker. They pledged to reduce staffing by 35,000 by 2030 and cut capacity at its German plants by 734,000 units. VW said the deal would allow savings of $15.5 billion annually in the medium term. Unions had said during negotiations that leadership figures should also do their bit and take pay cuts. They've placed blame for the car makers' malaise on poor strategic decisions by management.
And staying with the auto sector, British luxury automaker Rolls-Royce has said that it will pump in £300 million to expand its Goodwood plant to focus more on the bespoke parts for high-end customers. Here's more in this report.
Rolls-Royce will invest $376 million to expand its key Goodwood plant. The British luxury automaker said it plans to focus more on bespoke cars for high-end clients. The vehicles will feature anything from gold sculptures to mother-of-pearl artwork. Rolls-Royce has seen rising demand for high-margin personalised car content from wealthy consumers, a trend also felt at other high-end automakers. Rolls-Royce said the Goodwood plant expansion is to serve customers for its bespoke services and coach build programme. That's part of an invitation-only service where wealthy clients get to craft an entirely original motor car. The investment is the largest since the plant opened 22 years ago. Back then, it said it made one car a day, but now produces 28 cars daily. Rolls-Royce also said globally it sold over 5,700 cars last year. That's down more than 5% against cars it sold a year before.
Meanwhile, Chinese electric vehicle manufacturer BYD brought hundreds of Chinese workers on irregular visas to build a factory in Brazil, according to a key labor inspector. According to investigations, the company has pledged to comply with local labor laws for the workers remaining in the country. More in this report.
Electric vehicle producer BYD brought hundreds of Chinese workers on irregular visas to build a factory in Brazil, according to a key labour inspector. They told Reuters that the company has pledged to comply with local labour laws for the workers remaining in the country. A total of 163 of those workers hired by BYD contractor Xinjiang were found last month to be working in what Brazilian authorities said were slavery-like conditions. The 163 workers who were rescued by authorities in December are leaving or have already left Brazil. The firm has reportedly agreed to adjust the conditions of the hundreds of workers who will remain in the country. The inspector said about 500 Chinese workers in total were brought to work in the Brazilian factory. BYD and Xinjiang did not immediately reply to a request for comment. BYD has previously said it cut ties with Xinjiang, which disputes the charges by Brazilian authorities. A person close to BYD told Reuters that the Chinese company believes the visas were issued properly. The factory has become a symbol of China's growing influence in Brazil. BYD's been building the facility to produce 150,000 cars initially, as part of plans to start production in Brazil, its biggest market outside China. The probe has also brought unwelcome attention to BYD when it's seeking to expand globally and build on its dominance in China, the world's largest auto market.
Well, that's all we have time for on Morning Brief at 9. Thank you very much for watching, but news continues right here, so stay tuned to News9 Live.
From the highlands of Afghanistan to the jungles of Vietnam, the deserts of Africa, to street battles in Mosul, the AK-47 has dominated every conflict. But what if it could be made even better? Enter the SSS Defense P-72, India's answer to the AK-47. So how good is it? Let's find out.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
What is To the Nines?